You know, what happens when a revolutionary republic, one founded on a specific ideology, starts to look a lot more like an old-world monarchy? Well, that's the huge question at the heart of a major power shift happening in Iran right now, and this could redefine the country for decades to come. So let's dive in and explore exactly how this is all happening and what it really means.
So think about it. The Islamic Republic of Iran was built on this core idea that its supreme leader is chosen for his religious and political merit by a council of clerics. But today, the country is facing a reality that seems to fly right in the face of that principle. We're talking about a quasi-dynastic succession from father to son. This is an absolutely pivotal moment, and to really grasp it, we need to understand the man at the very center of it all.
And that man, the person at the center of this historic shift, is Mojtaba Khamenei. He's the second son of the former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And look, while there hasn't been some big official ceremony yet, multiple reports are confirming that, for all intents and purposes, he is now in charge.
So how in the world did a republic end up with a succession that looks so much like a hereditary one? Well, to understand Mojtaba's rise, you can't look at public speeches or big announcements. No, you have to look at the power that's been quietly built up behind the scenes for years and years. Okay, so the situation on the ground is incredibly complex. On paper, there's this body called the Assembly of Experts. They're all theologians, and they're supposed to choose the leader. Now, media outlets are reporting that they did in fact select Mojtaba, but there's a critical catch. They reportedly did it under immense pressure from the very powerful Revolutionary Guard, or the IRGC. The regime's official confirmation is being delayed, and that's probably to manage the political fallout. But here's the crucial point. He is the de facto leader, even if that symbolic ceremony is still on hold.
So we know what's happened, but the much more important question is, who is this man who's now in charge of one of the most influential nations in the Middle East?
For decades, people who watch Iran closely have had a nickname for him, the Shadow Chancellor. And this wasn't some sudden grab for power. Oh no. This is really the culmination of a long career spent operating just out of the spotlight, but right at the epicenter of the regime. For years, he's been the ultimate gatekeeper, controlling who gets to see his father and, by extension, who gets access to power itself.
A quick look at his profile tells a pretty fascinating story. He was born in the late 1960s. He's the second son of Ali Khamenei. And yeah, he pursued religious studies, but his real power, that doesn't come from his theological credentials. For more than 20 years, his influence came from his unofficial job as the gatekeeper of his father's office, what's known as the Beit, where he controlled access, information, and all the key appointments. This is really where it all started for him.
So, if not from the seminary, where does his real power come from? It's not from some deep well of religious scholarship that's respected independently by the clergy. No, it's from something way more modern and, frankly, more potent, a fusion of the state's political and military arms.
And at the very heart of that fusion is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. It was founded right after the 1979 revolution, and its whole job is to protect the political system itself. These guys are an immense military, political, and economic force, and they are the institution that has reportedly backed Mojtaba's rise straight to the top. You could say they're basically the kingmakers in this new Iran. And this really highlights the fundamental difference in his claim to power. On one side, you have your traditional senior clerics. Their legitimacy comes from their independent scholarship and their prestige. But on the other side, you have Mojtaba, and his authority is derived almost entirely from the state military apparatus. He's a cleric of the state, not a leader of the clerics, and that is a crucial distinction. His power base is this whole web of the regime's most hardline institutions. We're talking about his father's office, the IRGC, its foreign operations wing, the Quds Force, the huge Baji paramilitary militia, and these so-called revolutionary institutes that control massive chunks of Iran's economy. He's sitting right at the nexus of all of it, like a spider in the center of a vast web of power.
And all this concentrated power hasn't just been sitting there dormant. When you actually look at his track record, a really clear pattern emerges. He has consistently used this network not just to govern, but to enforce the regime's will and to brutally suppress dissent.
I mean, his fingerprints are all over some of the regime's most pivotal and violent moments. He was implicated in the controversial rise of President Ahmadinejad. He was reportedly a key coordinator in the brutal crackdown on the 2009 Green Movement protests, and he's been consistently linked to the suppression of the widespread social and economic protests that have shaken Iran in recent years. His entire career has pretty much been defined by using force to keep the regime's grip on power.
This assessment, which really reflects the view among opposition groups, is just chilling. It paints a picture not of a spiritual guide, but of a security chief, a man who is deeply and personally involved in the mechanics of state repression.
So, with a man from the security state now at the helm, what does the future actually hold for Iran and for the world? Well, his past gives us some pretty clear and sobering clues. Based on his alliances and his history, analysts are expecting a really clear agenda. First and foremost, ensure regime survival above all else. This means hardening internal control with zero room for social or political liberalization. It means further cementing the IRGC's role as the absolute backbone of the state. And on the world stage, you can expect a very firm stance on the nuclear program, using it as a tool of leverage and deterrence.
But here's the thing. Here is his greatest challenge, the one that is going to define his rule: legitimacy. A father-son succession just completely shatters the founding myth of the Islamic Republic, the idea that it's a system based on clerical merit. It opens the door to accusations of being a monarchy, and that's a really dangerous narrative for a regime that calls itself a republic. It is a massive contradiction that could, frankly, prove to be its undoing.
Which leaves us with one final and pretty provocative question. With a new leader whose power flows more from the military barracks than from the seminary, has the regime just guaranteed its stability for another generation, or has it just planted the seeds of its own destruction?